I have a question for all of us. The Kay says the experience is happiness here, and Inga's got this aliveness, this warmth, this vibrancy, and we'll get whatever's going on for everybody. But what about these? How do we know what our experience is? How do we know what's here? How do we know it? And for some of us, there's just knowing, right? It's kind of one of these self qualities, just knowing. But then there are these wonderful five senses, and perhaps that's part of Inga's word, the aliveness. These five senses. Is there like what's it like to feel what's here now? Maybe it's like a vibrancy, like Inga's, or maybe we feel some contraction or some warmth or some tension. What is felt? And then I'm really going to push the edge here. We push the edge here with what is felt for all of us, and for Sarah, for Inga, for Kay, for Vinder and Hannah. Can there be just a pure experience of feeling what's here, of experience, of feeling, of vibrancy, a tightness, a flow? And can we contrast between the feeling, the sensation of what's here, and the parts that narrate about it, the parts that have their story about it? Like, what do we feel that's here? Is it a vibrancy, an aliveness? Is there a sadness, a tightness, a flow, an openness? What's being felt? Is there a peace here? What's the experience of feeling in the body? And can it just stop there with the sensing, with the experiencing of feeling? And notice the parts that want to say something about it. Oh, this is good. Oh, this is bad. I hope we change this. I want to see if you can hear the parts that comment about it. Let's do another one. Let's do, what are you hearing? What's it like to hear? Just to hear. You're hearing this voice, you're hearing noises in your room, you might be hearing your heartbeat. Welcome back, Kay. What's it like to hear? And as you're hearing, this is the idea of like from self, just the spaciousness of self. It's just this experiencing the hearing, and then see if you can notice the narratives that come up, the parts that comment on the hearing. Oh, I'm hearing what's it saying, or can you see if we can hear the parts? Then there's just the hearing, just the hearing. What about smell? Smelling. And notice the parts come and say, oh, this is what I'm smelling, or I'm not smelling so well, or I'm congested, or oh, what a strange smell. What is that? And then there's just the smelling, the discernment, just the experiencing, the smelling. What about taste? Yeah, but we're not eating anything. Taste. Is there a taste here? Is there a taste? Is there a taste? What's the experiencing of taste? Taste. And notice if there's a narrative that goes on with parts. Oh, I can't really taste anything, or wow, it's a little bitter. It's the narrative of the parts. We notice our precious parts that are helping with their narrative, and then there's just the taste, the pure experience of tasting. And this last one's interesting. Like with your eyes closed, as most of our eyes are closed, they're seeing. And what are we seeing? Our eyes are closed. Is it just what is being seen? What's just the pure experience of seeing? And then can we hear the thoughts, the narratives of the parts about the seeing? And then as we come back together, we open our eyes and come back together, then they're all of our senses, all these five senses, the seeing, the hearing, the smelling, the tasting, the feeling. And can there just be an experiencing of the sensing. And notice what parts come up. Wow, how can I follow all of these five senses at the same time? That's a lot. Whatever parts come up, where this is silly. We did this in kindergarten. There's the parts that come up, and then there's just back to the sensing. What's being felt, smelled, seen, heard, tasted. Just as you continue to notice that, the sensing, I'm going to do my quick housekeeping. Just as we're sensing, you're hearing, you're seeing, you're feeling. In my housekeeping, I'm a mediator. I'm not a psychotherapist. It's not the IFS of psychotherapy. Friends and colleagues being together. Everyone's good, being responsible for their journey today. If I could get a thumbs up, please. What's it like? What's the feeling? What's it like just to feel? Thumbs up, thumbs to feel, to hear the sounds that are here. What's that like? And then my second one, I've got the video on always, only my image is ever shared. However, your audio could be shared. If there's ever a discomfort, you just let me know. I'll make you a co-host and you can click pause when you speak. That's my preferable way. And if ever at the end, there's a sense of, gosh, I wish I hadn't said that. Just let me know and I'll just go delete, delete, delete. If everybody's good that this might be shared electronically, if I could get a thumbs up, please. Oh, what's this like? Now I am worried because I don't, from Kay to everyone, I can only see the first line. Kay, tell us, talk to us. What are you worried about, Kay?
That I want to enjoy you, all of you. And if I get kicked out, I'm not going to come in again.
I'm not going to lock the room. And so you can just keep coming back. I'm not going to lock the room.
I also was kicked out and now I got back. I'm really happy.
Yes, yes, because I wouldn't want us. I mean, that would be so we would miss you today. We would miss Hannah and Kay. We like that would be like, oh gosh, I feel so incomplete. Yeah. What's going on? What's it like to play with the senses this way? What's it like just so that's a pure sensing, and it might sound like kindergarten, but for some of us, like for some, it's like the path. It's all the way there path, because as just the purity of sensing without then when we make that discernment more between parts and self, this experiencing, what's that like? What do you find? Who wants to go first?
I want to go first. I want to say that I cannot smell. I lost this sense. And today I was working with somebody and he had a lotion that smelled really good. And that I could smell, and it was very special for me. Did you hear me or you didn't?
I hear you. What's it like as we smell something really good? As we smell something good.
Did you hear me, Sid?
Oh, yes, you can't. Yes, you are you. Yes, we heard everything. And it's like, what's it like to smell something really good? What's that like? Can you hear? Is it working okay, Kay? You're not hearing us? Oh, darn. And then can we discern, again, can we discern the experiencing of smell, just the pure experiencing from the narrative, from the narrative. What else? So hope she'll come back. Yeah, welcome back, Kay. Can you hear us now? Yeah, here we are. Kay, was there more? We heard what you said. We talked a little about it. You can't hear us? Oh, I guess I'm not sure. Um, well, as Kay is working on that, Inga, did you have something you wanted to share?
Yeah, one thing came up. Thank you for bringing up the senses. It's so perfect because it's also funny when you just had to laugh when you said, "Well, that's kindergarten." It's not, but well, somehow it is, right? This has been with us all the time, and then I have this part that tries to make sense of things. And so what I'm seeing is when I so one question that I'm with a lot over the last time, and just also when you said, well, go to the senses, is this what is here when I don't listen to all the stories, like, oh, okay, Sid is talking, it's very, and today I was walking and I was listening, and I heard my own thoughts, and it's funny because they have my voice. So why do they have my voice? And what's even more funny is they have my voice, but they have my voice that I hear. It's not the voice that I hear when I record my voice, right? And it's like, oh wow. Well, I don't know the answer, but it's like
Let me ask you this, Inga. Isn't it the coolest thing? Like this that arises inside of us, it has it's so intimate. It sounds like it's our voice that's speaking to us. I mean, what an intimacy there. And can we just, is there a love of that? Like
mhm.
Sarah speaks of all of her parts with such this love of her parts. And it's like, wow, this is so intimate. Can we even call it a part? It's so close. It's like my voice
Yeah.
speaking to me. It's so intimate.
Well, it's like another sound, right? So to me, it's this. Is it a thought or is it just another sound? Because there's no difference. So is it just another image that comes up, or like what I'm seeing, but I'm seeing internally, or another? It's like a sound, It's not different from your voice. It's like that is also right here. So thank you for bringing all that up.
Wow. How do you make sense of that last thing Inga shared? The sense of her, the intimacy with her voices, but then there's a sense of, wow, it's just another sound arising here, right? In this space of where I am here.
Yeah.
And maybe that I am is kind of self, but it is this here-ness. And then Inga said something that you can just ignore it too, because it's like really, it's one of the really complicated things for most of us. It's like this koan. It's a sense of like her voices, but then Sid, your voice is just arising here too. Like the sounds, they're just sounds that are being experienced. They're sounds that are being experienced. And that's maybe the sense of how self experiences. We're just hearing, pure hearing. There's just hearing before the narrative comes. It's, hey, oh, that's Sid, that's Bender speaking, that's this, before the mind does its thing with it, before the parts does. Just pure hearing. Hmm.
Yeah, it's like your voice is not different than my. I mean, it's like it's just it's as intimate, So
Oh, beautiful.
thank you, Sid.
Sarah, you have just been smiling there, and I know sometimes if I don't say, hey, Sarah, what's going on? You'll be like, suddenly it's like an hour, and Sarah's like, Sid, I gotta go do this now, I gotta go. It's like, Sarah, wait, that's not fair. We missed you. What's going on, Sarah? And thank you before you go, Inga, thank you. That was exquisite. You to where you opened us up and took us. And again, before we go to Sarah, let me say one more thing. It's just a heads up. You're next, Sarah. Um, just what was that like hearing what Ingo was describing about the hearing and the intimacy of the parts? What was that like in your system? Is it similar to that as you hear the voices? Are they your voice? But some of us find it, no, it's strange. It resembles more my dad's voice or my mom's voice or some authority, a teacher's voice. Some of us hear different voices of our parts. They have different, it's like that. What's it like in your system? Are they all like my voice? They're just different pitches? What's that like? And then before we go to Sarah, let me just ask this again because we're just playing. How are you? How are you? What's here? How are you? What parts are here? What parts are here? It's like, God, I'm trying to figure out what Inga said. So, an understanding part, like what parts are here? Or a part that's like me, so excited that Sarah's about to share. It's like, whoa, what's she going to talk about? It's like, what parts are here? And then what are they arising in? Is there what's the beingness that's here? Is it peace? Is it okayness? Is it like a joy that Kay was speaking of? Is it like what we saw in Hannah's child? This like, wow, this radiant presence. What is it all arising in? Or is it like a curiosity, like this openness that Vendor and I had? We were here first and we're like, who's going to arrive next? Who's going to walk through the door? Like, what's this all arising in? And then, or do you join me in as we look at Sarah Square? Like, what's happening in Sarah? How is life? How is this being showing up? How's her senses? What's the experience there? All right, Sarah, we can't wait any longer. What's going on? Hi.
Hi, Sid. Hi, everyone. Um, well, what Inga was sharing, it brought up the same kind of experience in me and how I experience my own voice. And sometimes I don't recognize my own voice when I hear it somewhere. And there's a part of me that sometimes is like, oh, wow, that can be me. Oh, that's me. And it's just, yeah, it just has that experience. And sometimes, like, I can remember sometimes when there's sense of cringiness, like, I can't believe I sound like that. I sound awful. I wish I sounded different. But then other times it's weird, it's different. And other times I hear myself and I'm like, oh, that's me. Oh, that sounds good. So it's very different. It's a different experience, and it's like how different parts are experiencing my voice. So there's a part that's always somehow amazed by it, doesn't understand or doesn't, it just can't understand that, oh, this is me. And there's a part that doesn't feel good about my voice, the one that feels the cringe, and then the part that actually feels good about my voice. So there's three parts that experience my voice, and I kind of connected with these parts for a little bit, and it felt good to connect with the one that feels good about my voice. And
Isn't
yeah,
it funny? What's it like to be there with those three interpreters of your voice, right? You hear the three parts. Is it like this? I don't understand. It's my voice, and then one that doesn't feel good about it, and the one that feels good about it. Like having all three of those there, like can they all be there? It's like maybe they're all on stage and you're hearing them all. What's it like? What's it like having all those three different perspectives, Sarah?
the one that doesn't understand, it's a young part. So when it hears my voice, it realizes like, oh, she's an adult. I'm not a child. So that one, there's where that comes from. The one that feels the cringe is ashamed of her own voice. So there's that shame part, like an exile that feels like, oh, something's wrong with me. Something's wrong with my voice. And the one that feels good about it is, you know, I'm not even sure what that part is. It's just the part that feels good. Feels good about everything that's me. And I just appreciate that
Oh,
part.
just a minute. Feels good about everything that is me. So for all of us, as we hear Sarah with these three parts that are responding to her voice, can we welcome all of those parts? Like, how are we responding to her parts? Is there a sense of like we're the Rumi's guest house and there's just, wow, just like Vendor and I were waiting for everybody to show up. We were excited to, wow, Inga's here, yay. It's like, can we find that for Sarah's parts? It's like these three parts she's describing. And can they be welcomed in this space? Like, oh, wow, there's a part that just doesn't understand about these voices. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Another one that just cringes when it hears the voice. It's like, whoa, oh, this is horrible. Oh, gosh, that can't be me. And this other one that just feels good about everything that is Sarah, every expression of Sarah it loves. Like these three voices, like, could it be like we're having a party for these parts of her? Can all three of them be welcomed? And then now comes the hard part. Can we find that version in our own system that responds to us? And it might be your voice, or it might be, it looks at the image of you, right? It could be any of it. It could be looking at the image of Sid, or it could be it could be just three parts, just like Sarah's. That's like, I don't understand. This is also confusing. It doesn't make sense. Cringe, cringe. Oh my God, Sid looks like this. Oh, what happened to 25-year-old Sid? I liked him a lot better. Ooh, I do not. I can't even look at this. The cringe. And then the other part that's like, oh, look at him. Isn't he lovely? I just love this guy. I love everything about him. Like these three parts. What's your version of those three expressions that Sarah just shared? And is it okay that all three of them are here? Is it okay that the cringe is here? Whatever your version of the cringe, is it okay that that's here? Is it just okay that is it just as this is really pushing it? Is it just okay that the cringe is here as the one that just loves everything about Sid, everything about Sarah, everything about Inga? Can we just have just like Vendor and I welcoming people who come in the door? Can all of those just be so enjoyed? And this young one that just doesn't know how to make sense of all of this. It doesn't know what's it like over there, Sarah?
Yeah, it feels good to welcome all of these parts. You know, especially the cringy one, the cringed one. Like, oh, it's okay for you to be here. So
okay, I'm gonna make, oh gosh, I'm so sorry that Case that keeps jumping back in and out. I'm gonna make I kind of say this like I think it works better when our cameras are on because it keeps the container for us of like we're in a room together and because we get to get so much from each other, from the beings that we share. And it's like we're not alone. Sarah's not alone doing this. She's got Hannah and Vendor and Inga and Sid here and Kay as she comes in and out. And having said that, it's just whatever needs to go on. If you need it, if the camera needs to go off, do what needs to be done. But I think it really helps when we're able to have it all on together for the container that we're in. What else, Sarah?
yeah, there's just a sense of peace with just being with these parts and just welcoming them and accepting each voice and how it feels about the other voices.
Nice. And this welcoming and accepting that Sarah's describing. What's your version of that for all of us? Is there anything that has to be done? Do we have to have a part that helps with that, with the welcoming and accepting? Or is there just the welcoming and accepting? Just like Vendor and I waiting for people to walk in. It's just, you can't help but be enthusiastic. And when people show up, it's like as our parts show up, even the ones that cringe, even the ones like, God, what happened to your face, Sid? What are these wrinkles? It's like, even those parts that's just how you shouldn't even show your face in public. It's like those cringing parts. And we just find the adorableness, the innocence of those. How are we doing with that? The Sarah that she describes is just a welcoming and acceptance of what's here. Anything else bubbling in this moment, Sarah?
The young part, there's a sense of like trying to remember what it sounds like, what it originally sounds like.
Trying to remember what it originally sounds like. I'm not sure I'm following that.
Like its real voice when it was at that age, as a child.
Beautiful. Well, let's see what bubbles up when as we hear Sarah, and we explore these like three parts inside of each of us, and we hear them in Sarah. What bubbles for us? Who would like to share something? Anything bubbling in regards to this? Binder.
Um, Thank you, Sid, for doing this sensory thing. I started to feel so cold. Like it started to look, it was like a freezing cold. And there was part saying that I need to take care of myself. I don't know, it started to feel cold when I signed in, but you were not on. They got my sweater, and then I had to get a blanket, turn off the TV. I mean, turn off the camera, and there was a part saying, "Take care of yourself." And then there was part that when the hearing came, I could hear the sound, the inner sound, which I found it really peaceful. And when Hannah shared the sound,
What is the inner sound, Binder? What is that for
it was
you?
just a continuous hum sound I could hear. But then I couldn't, like, for a minute, like I couldn't even hear anyone else other than just my own sound. And I'm thinking, oh my God, wake up. You just, you're so in tune to your own sound. And
Let's wait.
same,
Let's pause for just a minute with that, because this is just it's so exquisite. It's almost like what Inga was describing, a sense of feeling, right? And feeling this aliveness in the beginning, this vibration, this aliveness, right? And then I'm guessing that vibration, that aliveness might have been bigger than the other feelings and sensations in her body. That's their feeling. And we're talking about another sense here, the sense of hearing. And Vender is hearing what she's calling her inner sound, this continuous hum. What's your version of that as you listen? As you listen in the silence, is there a sound? And for some, it might just be a vibration. So some people in kind of some of these spiritual speakers will speak of this like the sound of silence, like there's a sound to the silence, or some of them will call it even the sound of being. That's why in some of the spiritual places they'll use this word om. There's a sound. This is the maybe it's like Sarah's. What's the authentic voice of that part? Like what's the original sound? Sometimes they'll say there's like this om, the sound of silence. And it's kind of cool as we hear our version of it, whatever is here, or maybe it's just there is no sound. It is the silence itself in our system. Back to you, Vender.
just when my parts kind of kick in, then the sound stops. This happens in my spiritual practice where I go for meditation. Um, and the goal is to just listen to that sound. That's your self sound. That's your creation. This is how the creation happened. It was thought came, you know, but it's the
Oh,
parts
mhm.
that get me in. I'm working on the parts that come in
Yes.
to welcome them, help to integrate. Once those parts are attended, I can I can go back to the sound too. That's
Oh,
okay.
so how about this? How about what Vender's describing? sense of moving from just almost like what we were doing in our first thing today, like pure hearing. There's just this pure hearing in this as it goes deep in her system, there's just this inner sound, the sound of silence, sound of being that she hears, this hum. And then we talked about parts coming up. They're the narrative voices. And she even describes in Vinder's system, they really obscure this. They obscure it. If we call this the self, it's like they obscure it, right? The parts come up and obscure it. And in Vinder's, there's a sense of, well, there's some attention, some welcoming of the parts. Then when they relax, there's like a return back. Just the hearing, just the sound. Where in Inga's system with feeling, it might be different. Maybe the same thing works with this aliveness, this vibration, this vitality of aliveness. It's just, wow. Some people feel that as even bliss. Some people describe that as bliss. Like, wow, I'm in that. And then the mind goes to, oh, wait a minute, I need to scratch my leg. And then we don't feel it anymore, you know? And then it's like, wow, I've scratched my leg. Now I'm back. Back to you, Vinder.
And the seeing was just a blank a black screen. But I had experienced this well, when I was in India. I was quite sick. I had a vitamin D shot, and I couldn't figure out all this. All I could see, like it was a light and sun, and think I'm sick, you know. It's just it was so, ever since then, there's a difference in my things, how I connect with things. But mainly, you know, I close my eyes, see the, you know, blank space there, or sometimes green.
And what's
Black.
that like? What's that like when you close your eyes and there's a blackness, a blank screen? Is there a sense of that helps you come to a sense of home or come to self or come to rest or come to beingness? What is it like when you're just with that black screen? And just for all of us, it's just using seeing. Is there something useful here? What do you find, Vinder?
It's the open space. Like I like now I'm just kind of spaciousness, the open space. It just kind of moved from the black to the open spaciousness, the empty space. But it kind of goes back and forth, right? Like in the moment, that's the spaciousness. Yeah, just feeling all these sensation and seeing, hearing, um, like I'm not feeling cold. That changed. I think it's before I was just freezing. It's kind of neutral since, you know, I'm not. I think it because I paid the attention to it. The sweater and the blanket.
Yes.
I could have gone into the comfort into my blanket.
Let's
And
see
this
if
is how
anything's
cold I felt.
bubbling up. See if anything's bubbling up for others with this, because this is really beautiful. We're talking about hearing, the sense of the silence, and we're talking about seeing and the sense of closing the eyes, and it goes black and spaciousness that's here. Does anybody have anything bubbling for you about what Vinder's speaking of, where she's leading us?
Well, maybe just this one thing, you know, talking about, I mean, what resonated with me when you talked about the spaciousness, and there's like, wow, that's in my system, it's often like I open my eyes and like, bomb, it's right there. I mean, it's when I close the eyes, but it's also when I open them, like, oh wow. And then the other thing that I find so miraculous is this: I close my eyes and all the colors, all the shapes, all the forms, all gone. It's like, yeah. The part that is fascinated with that.
And is there, did you say you open your eyes and like, wow, it's what helps if we're playing the game of self and parts, or like this causeless okayness that we are, this peace that we are? How does the visual assist that in your system, Inga? Is it when it closes the eyes, everything disappears, or it's more when the eyes are open, there's just a spaciousness and open? How does it assist?
I mean, so do you remember this exercise that we did? So that's how it started for me. Is, oh, when my vision relaxes, there's just all this space, and the sense of, oh my goodness, I'm not limited to this, So in the vision, that was just it's like, wow, it's all this. I'm all this, all this.
So
And of course,
what for all of
there.
us,
Close my eyes. Sorry.
what for us allows the vision to relax? Oh, look who Hannah has with her. Oh, we have a special guest. Hannah, is there anything that's wanting to be said there?
Well, in general, is it my turn yet?
Oh, well, I was gonna say something about Inga's, but you have a special guest there, and we just wanted to include.
Well, that's my son Amir.
Oh,
Now he went to the surface.
um, oh, beautiful. Well, I have one more question about what Inga was just sharing first. It was like, he was saying when her vision relaxes, when it relaxes, then there's a sense of opening up into spaciousness. Is it possible that the natural state of vision, of seeing, is relaxation? When we talked about just seeing, wow, just seeing, here it is. And then it's just parts that have their narratives. Hey, I need to see this. I need to make sense of this and that. And that's what kind of tightens it up. And as we were exploring, Inga was pointing to something we used to do in all the groups. We did the thumbs and we'd like watch the thumbs. Whoa, what happens when the thumbs are behind you? Can you be aware of them? Can you see them? And then just something has to relax and open to be aware of the thumbs behind you. Gee. Anything else, Inga, before we go to Hannah and see what's happening in her world?
Or maybe just this. There's something about the relaxing, like not labeling or focusing, And the other day, I was, what if the whole game is really about letting parts feel so safe that they can completely relax, For me, it feels like they melt, or I don't know, they don't disappear, but they just melt into being, like, like ice flakes, or like snowflakes in the water, in the ocean.
Okay, so we got it. We got to say that one again. What if the whole game is just letting parts feel so safe that they can completely relax? Where do you go with that for all of us? Where does that go? And how do your parts like that? They're like, yay, exactly. Finally, you're hearing me. How do your parts react to that? What if the whole game is, as Inga's positing for all of us, he's inquiry for us. What if the whole game is just letting parts feel so safe that they can completely relax? How do your parts feel about that? Like Sarah's 70 parts. Like, what's that like? Are they like, yes, 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 we want to feel safe. Just let us feel safe, then we can just be ourselves and everything can be okay. What's that like? The whole game is that. And then where is this safety found? What the part's like, yes, what Inga said, we want safety. Where is it found? What do we do? Do we have to do something? Do we have to have that $1 million in our bank account? Do we have to have my face look like it did when I was 25? Like, what is it that we have to do to have our parts feel safe? And is it possible that it's just this love that we are, this welcoming that we are, this acceptance that we are, that can give them what they're looking for to feel that safety? Anything else, Inga?
Well, no, you pointed out so perfectly, Sid. I mean, it's like safety, love, acceptance, whatever the word is, Yeah. Thank you.
And just by the way, is there an enjoyment of some of us? I've had the privilege of spending a lot of time with Inga in these over a long time now, and it's just it's just such a treat to hear these things and see your system. And it's just such a celebration and such an enjoyment. Thank you, Inga, for just sharing you with us.
Yes, Sid. Thank you.
Mm. And then before we go to Hannah, because Bender was on this run with us, and I just wanted to I'm like, wait, let's include everybody in this and what she was sharing. And I didn't mean to cut you off, Bender, as you were sharing. And is there more there that would like to be shared? Because you ended with talking about the black screen. I just had to wait, we got to talk about this with everybody. Anything else bubbling for you before we go to Hannah? No. Oh. And so before we go to Hannah, how are you? How are we? How are you? How are you? How are you? What's here? It's oh, I'm having fun. Wow, that Inga thing was really blew my mind. A part that's understanding, gratitude. Parts but my back hurts. Or gosh, I really haven't eaten enough today. Or wow, I'm not cold anymore. I'm a little warm. Just to notice the parts that are here. And again, what are they arising in? What's the space? Is it
I
peace?
wanna-
Is it love? Is it okayness? Oh yeah, Kay, what you got?
I I want to say that I feel safe to say something that I need to feel safe. My part feels safe enough to say something to you that my part needs to feel safe. Shall I say it?
Let's see. Hey, everybody, shall she say it?
Okay. I am living in a place that doesn't make me feel safe. A house that doesn't make me feel safe in another city. Okay. But the city is wonderful and makes me feel safe. And I am back in the city where I used to live, where I am in my house that makes me feel safe. But the town where I used to live, doesn't make me feel safe. And as I am saying this, my part wants to cry, because it has been a very, very big shock to be back in this town where I don't feel safe. And my part is scared. My part is scared of going out to the street because it's really, really terrible, And I didn't really think my part would want to express how she feels crying, as I am almost doing right now, but I don't really know what to do because in that other house, I don't have my things, my stuff, and I don't feel safe.
So
And I
let
don't
me
know
ask you,
exactly what to do.
yeah. So as we all hear Kay, as we all hear this vulnerable part, it doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel safe to walk outside her house with where she lives, the neighborhood right now. It doesn't feel safe. How do we respond to that part? Is there a sense of love, welcoming, compassion? How in each of our systems, what's responding? Notice the sense of the response, the welcoming, the love of that part. To me, the vulnerability to share that. There's the vulnerability of that part in Kay. Where I don't feel safe, and there are tears that come. I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe to walk out the door. And then the trust that her system has to share that with us. Wow, this feels safe enough here with the five of us that she would let that part speak. Her protectors are okay, I think it's okay. I think it's okay to let this part be seen. And just before we go further, do some of us be like God? I wish I was in Kay's systems. We have parts that would like to be seen and heard, like that vulnerable parts that our protectors aren't maybe not ready to let them be seen yet, right? And can we just appreciate the Kay system, letting this be heard, this part, And what's our version of that? What's our vulnerable part? Our part that doesn't feel safe. We have a part that doesn't feel safe. Maybe it has to do with politics. Maybe it has to do with family. Maybe it has to do with the neighborhood outside or being out at night or a car might be stolen. What's it like, our part that doesn't feel safe? And then can we find this space inside of us that is okay? Even in the midst of, even if there were gunshots outside our home, there's something here that is unaffected, that is okay. And maybe it's like vendors, that black screen, going back to the screen, the sense of the visual. There's, or the hum, or the vitality in Inga, or what we see in the relationship between Hannah and her children, just that love that's there. It's like, what's that? Okay, can we find the okayness that's here, even in that there's a gunshot outside or whatever is scary for our parts? Can we find the sense of self that's here? That's okay, even in the midst of that. And then can we notice the, oh, Kay's doing her yes. Remember, this is the yes. And then what's the relationship between self? How does self respond to the part that's scared, part that doesn't feel safe? What's that like inside of you? What's the relation between the self that is this causeless okayness and the part that is, I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe. Is the part heard? Is your part heard that doesn't feel safe? Is it heard? Is it being heard? Is there love for it? Is there compassion for it? Just the compassion for the part inside of you, the one that doesn't feel safe for all of us. And K for your system. See if they can track this. The one that doesn't feel safe. How does self respond to it? Is there compassion for it? For the tears? For the, and how is it being met? What's the experience of the part? Is it like being held, like the way Hannah holds her kids and loves her kids, and just the what we see as their kids come in, the love that's there, just especially when she holds her kids. Is it like that? Does self just welcome and nurture, a nurturing love, like a maternal love? Or is it more a presence, like the part feels, the scared part feels, wow, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. Something's here with me. Kay's here with me. Inga, Sarah, we're here with our parts. Does it feel not alone? Is it more of a presence? Or is it more of a sense of being understood, held, loved? What's it like? Is there a warmth? Inga described a warmth. Can the part feel the warmth of presence, the warmth of being held? What's this like in your system, Kay? And also, before you answer, there's no need to go here because this is a lot. The vulnerability of just letting that part speak. If this is welcome just to pass on this. There's no need. We're not wanting to push anything with your parts. As you can tell from Vinder's tears and Sarah's face, this is a lot where we're going here. And there's no need to push it for any of us. Anything you'd like to share on what this is like in your system, Kay?
Yes, I just felt the self as a presence, and it said, it's going to be okay because you have a lot of options. And I think the part that felt unsafe was the part that was saying, I have fear because there are no options. And now I felt the love of the self telling me there are options.
Yeah. We relate to that where parts kind of like, this is the way it is. It's horrible. It's this. And they see it this way, right? We all know this in parts, and we can have compassion for it. And then there's the self and the okayness where there's a lot more space. Anything else, Kay? And then also, I'd like to see what's this like? Anything bubbling for anyone, and where Kay's taken us with this part that doesn't feel safe in us? Anything that would like to be shared? What's bubbling?
I just want to say thank you for sharing that. Please just feel the compassion, it makes so much sense what you said. So thank you.
Maybe for all of us, the sweet, oh, look at Vendor's appreciation. Just the sweet, for our vulnerable parts, right? We all, what Kay's pointing to, we all have this, the ones that don't feel safe and scary and it's not okay. It's just that those parts can receive that they're not alone. There's like Inga's love that she just shared, this appreciation. It's like there's this welcoming from self. And you're not alone in this. You've got 5 of us with you, for all of us, for Inga's parts, Anna's parts, Vendor's parts, Sarah's, Sid's. That it's just like, maybe it feels a little bit safer with the self that's here. Anything else bubbling from anybody with what Kay shared? Vendor.
Thank you, Kay, for sharing your vulnerable parts. Just resonated with me. For me, my young parts were coming up yesterday. It was around the time we started with the punctuality and showing up on time or not showing up on time. I struggle. I thought, like, I'm just gonna give little clips of it. When I was younger, I needed to take food for my grandpa, my dad, because they're working in the farms. And sometimes with 5 kids, mom was late, and my grandpa would get really angry, for not being on time bringing the food. So now there's a parallel happening. I really feel connected to my grandkid, when they bring the child, especially the 2-year-old or 19 months old. She just bring this, I just get so much joy in it. But I need to be there on time because one day I was so excited I'm going to go see them. And I went a day early or something. And because I had to ring the bell and the response was not good. So yesterday my son said, Mom, I was so worried. Like I needed to be there 5:15, but there was a little bit of a traffic. It ended up 5:20. My parts were just so scared. That I'm gonna lose this opportunity to have a connection with my grandchild.
How are we responding? What's happening in each of us when we hear this preciousness from Vendor? I need to miss the opportunity to connect with my grandchild. I need to get it right. I need to do it right. The part that's scared, like I need to do it right. I need to get there right the right time. Because they're just welcoming in our guest house. And so we just, wow, this part of her is just, oh, she's here. Wow, we're all so excited. Like welcomed. It's just welcomed and being loved. Like there's space enough to just like we welcome that part of Vendor, just the welcoming it and loving it just as it is. And maybe you have a part that wants to help. Sometimes we have helper parts. Well, let's see, set an alarm on your clock and do what you may have helper parts that come up. And we just notice those. And then there's the self that just welcomes and loves this guest house. Her part just the way it is. Nothing needs to change. We just that the beautiful vulnerability of the part. Got to get this right. Don't want to miss the connection. Don't want to mess up. Don't want to miss it. We can accept that. And then if you think this is about Vendor, this is when it gets uncomfortable. She's leading us in our own systems. Like, what's our part that's like this? That's just like, I got to get it right. I don't want to miss the opportunity. Need to do it right. Need to get it, whatever that is, when you can feel that. In Sarah and my favorite movie, Inside Out, There's a sense of the anxiety part. And it's just like maybe there's an anxiety part that comes up. Got to do it right. It's like, can that be welcomed and loved just the way it is? That part in you. Anything
I
else,
want to say
Vinder?
that, I want to say that I wanted to tell the part in Binder that everything is going to be okay. And I wanted to hug Binder. But on the other hand, when you put it on the other side, I said, oh my God, I have felt and thought the same that Binder is feeling. And again, Sid, I mean, there's a part of me that is maybe saying, this is not fair. This is not fair that, for example, Binder feels, her part feels like that. It's not fair that I feel like that. And again, the self would like to as the self wants to tell Binder not to worry and hug her, myself is telling me, you do exactly the same, and it's okay, and it's okay. You know, you understand me?
Yes. It's okay. So how about that's a big move, right? For some of these speakers on YouTube, that's all it is. If you can just find it's okay with what arises in us, just what Kay's saying, it's okay that she can really say that it just comes towards her parts. The one that's feeling anxious and need to do it right, it's okay. There's just an okayness in self. It just knows it's okay and it meets it with it's okay. It's like a version of love. It's okay. Beautiful. Mm.
Yeah, everyone, I'm sorry, but I need to leave. It was great to be here with you.
Oh,
Thank
Inga,
you.
gosh, you took us all kinds of places today. Thank you so much. I loved it.
Thank you. Love you all, and I hope you enjoy the rest.
Thank you. Oh. Vinder, you had something coming up.
My courageous part were coming up too yesterday. Normally I would be really scared, but my the confident, the courageous part, I don't know if it was self or parts, and gave me the voice. I said, this is how it's gonna be. There's time, because I was so afraid to be early too, because last time I was pushed back in a way that my parts had to process a lot of it, the stuff. So it was all felt so much rejection. But yesterday I was courageous. I said, you know, there's gonna I, I shared my feeling. If I'm early, it was not accepted. If I'm late, I'm scared. And I shared my vulnerability. And there's gonna be times that you know, I could be late or not late, and or you know, be on time. And I wasn't heard. My parts were not, you know, were not heard, and that's okay. And I'm just I was seen that I was there. I was welcomed, and I got a message saying thank you. You know, my child really enjoyed the time. And yesterday also, because I wanted to help them, my helper part, I was there. And on the other hand, my son, my older son, you know, son, he phoned me. He was needing help. My parts took care of myself. I said, I can't do it today. I need to rest. It's just going to be loving part. I'm just going to enjoy with my little one. So that was great.
Thank you. So as we hear Vinder's system, well, if I'm early, I'm not going to be accepted. If I'm late, it's going to be scary. However, you know, and I know me, it's going to happen. I'm not going to be it's going to happen again. I know that, and we've got and we all relate to that. It's like we have parts have experiences, and she calls it rejection as well. We have these bad experiences, and it's like, God, how are we going to make everything all right? And this is sometimes we call that anxiety in our system. But can we just see the innocence of the parts as Vinder's described? They're just trying to work it out, and it's Sometimes it feels like it's an intolerable reality. It's impossible. I don't know how to do this. Sometimes parts can get like that. Don't know how to make it okay. And when that's like that, can we just welcome that? Wow, the parts are overwhelmed. They don't know how to make this work. And we see the innocence of that, the innocence that they're doing their very best. It's like vendor, early, late, I don't know. It's so hard. How am I going to, I don't want to lose the connection. Just in our systems is what vendor's leading us. She's speaking as we truly love her parts and love what's happening in her. If we can do the same thing in our systems, our system that feels like an intolerable reality. Sometimes I don't know how to find okayness in experience. And I am really curious. We haven't heard much from Hannah today, and I'd love to hear what's going on in Hannah's system. And just before we go there, let me just ask us again. How are you? This is a lot. We've been together for an hour, about an hour and 7 minutes so far. How are you doing? How are you? Like, what parts are here? Is it like, oh, I'm tired? Whoa, it's a lot. I want to understand what vendor was sharing. Is it like, oh, I'm hungry? Like, what's here? How are you? Or how are
Wonderful.
you? And maybe wonderful. And how are you? It might just be self here that comes. Oh, Sid, stop talking about parts. There's this beingness, there's a peace, there's this okayness here. How are you? Just to notice what's here. And then if you'll join me in the curiosity with how's Hannah? What's going on in her system as she's got her children that are just like, Mom, what about me? What about me? I want to play too. How's it going, Hannah?
So here it is. Yes, it's so much. There were so many different perspectives and things coming up, and 1 second.
Oh. I think Hannah might have like 4 children at home. There's a lot going on there.
So I hope, I'm sorry. So, like just right now, yes, there's lot. They're not happy. There's one coming, going, coming, going. They're crying. They're crying and arguing and discussing. And Eva, ich bin jetzt gerade im Gespräch und ich möchte jetzt einmal fertig reden. Eva? Ich möchte mal.
Oh.
Ja, dann nimm das mit. Dann nimm das mit. Dann mach aber die Tür zu. Aber such dir einen guten Platz, Eva. Mach das in der Verpackung und mach die Tür zu.
Can we feel her love and her care for her kids, right? Her devotion to her kids.
Well, when you were speaking about this, I could really resonate with this feeling, oh, I just can't get it right. It's just never right. It's just not enough. And there's not enough patience, and there's not enough love, and there's not enough persistence, and there's not enough boundaries, and there's this feeling of there's not enough. This, yeah. Dann geht's, mach dir vor meiner Tür. Eva, mach vor meiner Tür. Setz dich hin und mach dir vor meiner Tür. And there's not enough space for myself. So I could really resonate. And I just, and whatever I do, it's always, something's always wrong. So that's, yeah, I can really relate to that part. Then, oh, that felt really good to express this. I feel already like, and to see all your gentle faces, even though I'm, yeah, that's really lovely. So that's so interesting. There were things that came up that usually in my day-to-day life, these are things that are I never have anybody to talk about it with, or somebody who can relate to this. So the things Inga was sharing about her, like, I don't even know how to describe this. It's not the childlike wonder that's sitting there and thinking, oh, wow, the world, but it's like intellectual part. That's like, wow, this world is just, the world is just out of this world. Like, how can it be? I'm looking, I see everything, and then I close my eyes and it's all gone. This I don't know how to describe this. That's not a child who sees the world like this. It's like the mixture of the wonder of the child with the perspective of the adult. And that was just, to use your words, exquisite. And the other example, what she said, because when she said, "Oh, how is that your voice, Sid, is equal to my voice speaking to myself, even though they're not equal at all, even though one is coming from another person and one is just happening inside, but there's a level on which they're absolutely the same." And I remember having this experience one time when I was in a very vulnerable space and someone spoke to me and I was like, "Oh, you're inside me and there's nothing I can do about it. There's no boundary that's protecting me from you being inside of me." And then I had a part that almost like that, where I was like, oh, I could just, get in this downward spiral into a real panic attack right here. Because it's so, like, it's so extreme, actually. Like this level of stuff. I don't know how to describe it. And I could feel like a very, I don't know, there's a fear that's, I don't know, existential. Like a real, Eva, die Tür bitte zu machen. Ja. Mach einfach deine Ohren zu, Eva. Und mach dein Puzzle. So this existential fear. So that was what came up. And now let's see, because this.
What's the existential fear, Hannah? What's that of? What's the fear?
Maybe not to be in control. That I am, but I'm not in control. And anything could happen. So especially from this, what I said yesterday, this part of this is there's nothing there. There's no love. There's nothing to trust. So from this space, anything could happen and really bad things could happen. And I don't have any way of protecting myself at all, other than becoming unconscious. But what if I can't become unconscious?
And this really bad things can happen. How much of it feels like it's like physical safety, and how much of it feels like it's emotional safety?
Oh, I don't know how to answer that. It's
really bad things like they
feels like
occur to the body or occur to like the. Oh, sorry. Go on.
I think I would call it spiritual safety. This trust that the one, that love, that goodness that is there, or this, what if it isn't? And what if suddenly I'm here and I'm like in, how to call this, I'm in the hands of evil and I'm powerless, but I'm still there. So that's
what would that, so this is kind of scary, and you don't have to answer this, anybody, but if there wasn't goodness here, if there wasn't love here, if there's nothingness that Hannah's pointing to as a possibility that causes existential fear. And like what might that look like? And for her, she describes, what if I'm in the experience of what we call evil? Like what is that? Is it what is that fear? Is it like, oh, there'll be like such discomfort here, there'll be anxiety, there'll be panic? What is that we're scared of? This, if I was in powerlessness and there was sense of like falling into evil or nothing, this nothingness that is dark. What's that? What are we scared of?
Outside, for me, outside of the door, it's evil.
So, and we saw in K we could hear the part that was scared of, like, it's not safe out there, and like what's going on, it's not safe. What's the experience in Hannah's system of this?
maybe of pain. Maybe the fear of pain. Yeah, I think like
And
torture.
is it more physical pain or emotional pain? Or this that you're calling spiritual pain? Like what's the pain?
Well, I think it wouldn't make a difference as long as it is so strong that I don't have a way to keep it out or to navigate it. You know,
Okay.
that it's overwhelming. It's too
Got it. It's
much.
overwhelming. So how about that? How about that for all of us? Like when it becomes this existential terror, what we might call evil, whatever, that for Hannah, it's overwhelming, it's too much. Can we find our version of that when it becomes overwhelming and too much, and that's just like no way?
Komm raus.
But when it when it's not too much, but then let's just see that line when it becomes too much. And this is where we play with, they call it a tipping point of capacity. Like, what's our capacity? Like, up until it's too much, it's like, oh, I can just welcome it. I can welcome it. Like, we're welcoming the parts, like we welcome Kay's part that was looking for, that needed safety. We can welcome it. But at some point, when we lose, when we don't have enough control or something, it becomes too much, overwhelming, and then we do not want to go there. How are we doing, Hannah? What's coming up there?
Oh, I love how you're putting this in perspective and making this more of a, when you spoke now, I could see I could see the child, that so yeah, and that it's maybe not about the outside world, but it's about a part that just was little. And something outside was big. And now it's not like this anymore. So it becomes a bit, another, it's
But
really
we still
interesting.
have the little part, but we still have the little parts, right? We still have those little
Yeah.
parts in us that for those little parts, it's too much. It's overwhelming. It's too much. Our little parts that's still very real for, and for other parts of us, it's not. It's not too much. It's not overwhelming. There's a sense of, wow, self is here. But can we relate to, let me just ask us all this. Is it ever too much for self? This is a really big question. Is it ever too much for this beingness for self? Is it ever overwhelming for self? And Kay's like, no. Like, see if you can find that for self, for this beingness, for what we point, and whatever your word is for it, true nature, the divine inside, whatever it is it ever too much for that? And then can we have infinite compassion for our parts, for some of our, especially our young parts, where it is too much, for them? And then how are we doing, Hannah?
Oh, that's wonderful. I just love it. And it's something I'm going to, because when self is, or whatever is there, then I can feel the love. And when I can feel it, it's all right. Then I'm connected. And then it's very clear.
But even
And
then, right, even when we have that connection, there can still be parts that are scary. Like you hear noises outside or something that might scare us, or we touch something inside, a critic inside or something. We still have parts that can kind of freak out sometimes. And then back to you, Hannah.
yeah, but that's really interesting because the quality, like this yesterday, the glimpses. So I've had glimpses of the quality. So this means it's there. And it doesn't actually, in this point, it doesn't really matter if it's outside or not. Because if I have this quality to connect with on the inside, this is already, I think, all the safety, at least for this, that's needed. So it gets just to the point like, okay, how can I maintain that connection, or how can I like build up my muscle of connecting to that and having it at demand, let's say, or always there.
Yes. And can we also have compassion for the limits of our capacity? The limits when it becomes I love your two words, when it's just too much, when it becomes too much or becomes overwhelming for some of our young parts. Can we recognize that, and can we have compassion for that? Wow, I know what my capacity is. Like your kids, if you're going to go for a walk with them, okay, after a mile, that's as far as they can go. And there's just a recognition, like I'm not going to take them on a 3-mile walk. It's like the same thing for our parts, for the fear that comes up, and at some point it becomes overwhelming and too much. And can we just be like, okay, that's where it is. What you got, Hannah? And then I'd love to see what's bubbling up for everybody, because where you've taken us has been just extraordinary.
Yeah, and then maybe now what came up when you said this is like, yeah, and then this, and what's coming then is trust. And trust that it's okay, and trust that I'm somehow still held. Even though I'm losing it, I'm still held. And that there's a source where it's infinite, even though it's not infinite for me. And I just wanted to say one last thing. When Sarah shared her feelings about her own voice, I could so much relate to this, and I'm so thankful that you did. And for me, it was like, wow, you have such a lovely voice that it gave me hope for this part of me that feels cringe, like thinking about my own voice. It's like, oh, if she has a cringe part and her voice sounds like that, maybe there's hope for me too. So that was really I'm so thankful that you shared that. And but still also at the same time there was a lot of shame coming up, and there was like, oh no, don't. Ja. Nein, ich möchte, dass du rausgehst, bis ich fertig bin.
What's this like for all of us, as Hannah's been sharing with us for the last 15 minutes? What's that been like? What's it like as we hear her parts and we hear her exploration and we hear what's happened? What a precious window, right? She's just invited us into her inner world and shared it with us. What's that like? Is there just like, wow, I just love the part. I love it. Just falling in love with everything that she shared, these parts of her. What's that like? Is it all the being welcomed? And what parts have come up in response? And then that last line she said, even when I'm losing it, I'm still held. Like, what's, and just notice for us that like, whoa, I don't get that. That's not true for me. Like, notice that it's true. Even when I'm losing it, even when it's too much, when it's overwhelming, I'm still held. Like, self is still here. Even when I'm losing it, I'm still held, that Hannah said. What's that like for all of us? What's bubbling? We got 5 minutes left. Sarah, Kay, Vinder, what's coming up?
For me, it's the most precious gift I received in a long time, what Hannah just said, and that you repeated it. Even though I am overwhelmed, it's too much, I don't have the control, I'm still held. I am very, very grateful for all of you and for Hannah saying that.
Wow. Thank you, Kay. Thank you. Vinder.
Just Hannah really wrapped it up for me. For me, it's more of the, and you said capacity, just because a lot of sadness was coming up last night. Then I just handed over to whoever, and I'm feeling the resiliency in my heart. Like the sensation wise, I was feeling kind of cracks in my heart last night, but I'm feeling fullness and resiliency, even though I have those parts. I'm not good enough for some messages. And I'm having so much compassion for my adult children. They're going through so much, with their two little ones. And sometimes they're losing it too, and that's okay. I've been there, done that, and I want to be cherish that compassion for themselves and cherish my parts who said I
Yes.
can't do it. I can't do it today, and looked after myself yesterday.
Beautiful. How about that last thing that Bender said about the compassion for her adult children? Like the compassion for people in the world with us, people we care about, the people who can trigger us at times. And can we find that sometimes when our parts are being welcomed and they feel safe, then more compassion opens up for those who are around us. Thank you. It's so nice to hear that from you, Bender. And I'm going to share something, my final thing, and then I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to do the full closure for us today. And mine is just thank you. I just love how today was really all of us, and we just way each of you took us to someplace like really profound and took us all there. Wow. Thank you. And now Sarah is going to, we've got like 2 minutes left. She's going to do our closing for us today. Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you, Sid. Oh, it's been great today. And I really loved Hannah's share, and the part about being held. And there was a moment there when Hannah was holding her child's face and just talking to the child, just comforting the child. There was a part of me that felt so much compassion and just so much longing for that. Like, oh, I had parts that want to be held and comforted like that. And I realized, oh, if I just comforted these parts, they'll feel good, and they won't have to feel so activated. And for me, like today, oh, my cringe part that came up, like if I just felt a moment that I needed to just hold her face and just talk softly to that part and make it feel better. So thank you so much for that share, Hannah, and everyone.
Wow. Thank you, everybody. See you later. Thank you.